At this moment in time, companies are just not going to tolerate not having a diverse slate. Why? Because it puts the company at risk from a business perspective. So this means not only a diverse slate of candidates, but those candidates that do come in who may happen to be interviewed to lead diversity efforts or inclusion efforts or equity efforts, one needs to be prepared to talk about that. And I'm not just talking about the obvious in terms of culture, race, gender, et cetera, but what are the different kinds of cross-cultural or cross-functional groups or teams that you've managed. So every leader needs to be prepared to speak to that, to talk about examples, to talk about their experience, to talk about what you personally have done in terms of leadership in those areas. So it's changed in terms of the kinds of individuals who are tapped for board level roles, often extending to the C-suite as well. So think executives, board members, and recruiters, everyone is paying attention to this in the workplace. What it does suggest is taking the time for self-assessment and self-reflection to decide where are you in this time, at this moment, and what work do you need to do personally today, and what examples do you plan to bring forward of work in this area during your interview. Next, please. Finally, the issues are different. Those that were priorities before aren't necessarily the priorities now. There's a newer set of issues. Obviously, the coronavirus and working remotely has really broadened the need for so-called stakeholder capitalism. And what that means, and I touched upon this before, is how can you run an effective, profitable business virtually and remotely? And those are questions that are being asked and things that need to be explained. The other is going back to DEI and beyond. In today's world, a number of political or social issues have come to the forefront, and some companies have chosen to take a particular stand or try to remain as apolitical as possible. But truth be known, your leadership and guidance goes beyond what you've done and what you know. It's also who you are. And so being in touch with that and being prepared to speak to that, because there's various constituencies involved, is also going to be important. Also being in touch with what the company is doing at the board level and executive level, looking at this newer set of issues. And do keep in mind that empathy, your ability to communicate with a broader range of stakeholders, does not necessarily mean agreement. It means understanding. But clearly, as a leader, focusing on the workforce, their well-being, in addition to the company's success, are much more in the foreground than they were in prior years.